Our business correspondent, Owen Fairclough, will also be on the case sneaking around as well, and he's been following things from the European side.
Phil, the IMF has been very pessimistic about the global economy going into these annual meetings. Brittle and mediocre were among the adjectives it used, and much of that concern has been directed towards Europe. Well, I spoke to Guntram Wolff, the head of European think tank Bruegel, and asked him if he shared that pessimism.
Certainly the economic recovery or the economic situation in Europe is still in dire straits. I mean, the growth is very, very weak. And one cannot really see anything on the horizon to think that the Eurozone recovery will now pick up and all of a sudden become a strong and well-growing economy again. So overall, I'd really say, yes, we do have a pretty bleak outlook, little investment, little growth, little job creation at this stage.
So you're even more pessimistic than Christine Lagarde. Dire straits, that sounds pretty bad to me. Are you sure it's that bad? We are seeing recovery even in countries like Greece, for example, these bailout countries in the Eurozone. Even they are starting to pick up a little bit.
Well, look, I mean, some of the periphery countries are now picking up, Spain, Greece, and so on. But you shouldn't forget from what level. I mean, Greece contracted 25% in GDP. Spain contracted substantially. So what we are seeing there is now finally a little sign of hope in the periphery. But what matters for the Eurozone economy as a whole, of course, is the economic performance of France, of Italy, and of course of Germany. And even in Germany, growth is not where it could be. I think it could be much, much higher than it is currently, given the very good financing conditions and so on.
That must set alarm bells ringing then when the German economy, the one that performed well throughout the whole financial crisis, is now, in your opinion, maybe not stumbling, but certainly struggling a little bit. Does that set alarm bells off for you?
No, look, I mean, the German economy is resilient and, consumption is holding up. But what I'm saying is it's not growing at the level that I would like it to grow, helping the entire Eurozone to be pulled out. I mean, essentially, we need a German economy growing at 3, 4, 5% perhaps to pull the rest of the Eurozone behind. But you don't see that. And we certainly have also a number of external threats, insecurities, including with the Russia-Ukraine crisis. All of this weighs, of course, on sentiment. So my overall feeling is that it's going to be very difficult to see significant job creation at the Eurozone level next year.
We saw some good numbers coming out of the US at the tail end of last week. There's a reasonable amount of optimism over here about where the economy is going. But I would suggest that the US economy is now decoupling from Europe. Is that a problem for you?
Well, I think it's a good thing to see the U.S. economy recovering. That's good for the world economy. I certainly think it's a good news that the Federal Reserve will and is gradually normalizing monetary policy, because we don't want too easy monetary policy for too long. So basically there is an adjustment happening and a normalization of the economic situation happening, and I think that's a good thing for the US, and it will certainly also be beneficial to the Eurozone economy, to the extent that the Eurozone economy still trades a lot with the US. And of course has lots of bilateral investment linkages and so on. So it's a good thing to see the US economy recover.
Where does China fit into all of this? We've talked about this fairly bleak outlook for the global economy. Where do we put China into this puzzle?
Well, look, China is of course an engine of world growth. It has a fairly robust economic growth. I'm personally also a little bit, let's say, more skeptical that we can keep the 7.5% on a long-term basis. But certainly, it's a very robust economy, growing well. And more importantly, perhaps, it's an economy that has moved by now really quite a bit closer to the technological frontier. I mean, in a number of areas, China is really now competing in markets where 10 years ago we thought, that's basically reserved to the US and some top European countries. But now China and even India, an economy like India, is moving really into top-notch products, top-notch technologies, and that makes global competition much tougher. And it also means that everybody in Europe has to adapt to that.
So the US and China among the few bright spots in an otherwise downbeat assessment of the prospects for the global economy. That was Guntram Wolff of European think tank Bruegel.
That was our CCTV business correspondent, Owen Fairclough.